name is Jason Davis, and this is another exciting adventure in truth, justice, and the American way, to quote DC Comics and Superman. We are hidden here in the Iron Bunker in West Volusia County, governed and actually protected by 2 rabid Pomeranians and 1 crazy cat. That's right, what's going on here, folks? You know, I received a posting on Facebook the other day from Freethinkers United for Change. A little scared about the word change, but I read the posting anyways, and I quote this posting. I am F-wording tired of liberal being used as an insult. Liberalism gave you the right to vote. Liberalism gave you equality. Liberalism gave you inalienable rights. Liberalism gave you free effing speech. Liberalism is the enemy of tyrants, and I'll forever be proud to defend it. And I end quote. Well, I don't know exactly who the author of this is, so for this little tirade person, we'll just call him Little Johnny. Yes, that's right, Little Johnny. Well, Little Johnny, it sounds to me like someone needs to read a few more history books. The inalienable rights you speak of comes from a letter to King George, accusing him of high crimes against the colonist, also known as the Declaration of Independence. It's not a law. It's not a government document. It's a letter. And we are so fortunate to have copies of that up there at the Library of Congress. So if you want to read it, go ahead and take a gander at that. So what is liberalism? You know, I've done a lot of research on the subject, and well, here's what I've found. According to the Encyclopedia Britannica, liberalism is the political doctrine that takes protecting and enhancing the freedom of the individual to be the central purpose of politics. Interesting. Liberals typically believe that government is necessary to protect individuals from being harmed by others. Interesting. But they also recognize government itself can pose a threat to liberty. As a revolutionary American pamphleteer Thomas Paine expressed in Common Sense, which was his pamphlet he wrote in 1776, government is at best a necessary evil. Laws, judges, police are needed to secure individuals' life and liberty. But the coercive power may also be used against them. The problem, then, is to devise a system that gives government the power necessary to protect individual liberty, but also prevents those who govern from abusing that power. The problem is compounded when one asks whether this is all that government can or should do on behalf of the individual freedom. Well, here's where the present-day liberals move farther to the left. A little history here, ladies and gentlemen. So President Woodrow Wilson was in office, and somewhere someone noted that the United States needed funding. That's right, government runs on money. I'm sorry to say it, but it is true. So with the national debt running higher, they decided to institute an income tax on the American people. For you see, income tax was not a new concept. The United States government imposed an income tax briefly during the Civil War, help pay for the war effort, although that was not a very civil war. And in the 1890s, they also imposed a slight income tax. So under the leadership of President Woodrow Wilson, the 28th President of the United States, the idea of a permanent income tax was proposed to Congress, and in 1913, the 16th Amendment to the Constitution legalized the income tax, which is very interesting because in 1914, World War I erupted. Just so you know, President Wilson was a Democrat and a liberal. Now we forward on a few years. Our 32nd President, Franklin Delano Roosevelt, is actually accredited for being the father of the current-day liberal movement. And here's why. In 1933, the United States was in one of the worst depressions that it had gone through since the signing of the Constitution. He vowed to fix the problem with the New Deal. Does that sound familiar, folks? A New Deal? Isn't there a noun in front of it today? In the New Deal, he proposed and pushed over 100 projects and departments into the U.S. government. Many of them are still there today. The Tennessee Valley Authority is one of them. but he is mostly famous for making the United States a welfare state. Part of his New Deal was to support those who were down and out because of the Great Depression. This cost millions of dollars in giveaways, though the handouts were very meager. Let's be realistic. The soup lines, if there was enough soup, you got a bowl of soup and a piece of bread on a nice cold evening. Or maybe you could get a wool blanket to keep warm while you slept out in the cold because there was no place for you to stay, and you couldn't afford an apartment. So what brought us out of this Great Depression? World War II. Let's be real, war's big money, and when soldiers go off to war, the job market opened up, and almost everyone had a job, and the Great Depression slowly faded away into history. Now, this is very short, abbreviated. I don't have hours to discuss these matters, because I tell you we could. All these programs that were created to help during the Great Depression were, never canceled, never closed out. Nope. Because now too many people have become dependent on these programs for their well-being, for their life, for their food. And so these programs continue. And they grew. So we move forward. And prior to 1962, the United States government was in a little bit of a quandary again. How to raise revenue to support a growing government, because our government by this time has grown exponentially. The burden of the programs of the 1930s was getting to an all-time high. States were needing more money from the federal government. Roads, all these things were going on. There were two major wars since World War II, Korea and Vietnam, and the war effort was costing more than they could afford. We were in debt. So now we enter John F. Kennedy, president from 1960 to 1963. His administration advisors helped him to create our favorite organization of all times, the IRS. And it was born on the first day of July in 1962, and I'm sure they wanted to put it on the 4th of July, but I don't think any Republican was going to have that. This is a bureaucratic organization that is not run by Congress. Let me explain that. It's not run by Congress, but it is run by the executive branch of the government. In other words, all the bureaucracies are run through the president and his staff. That's why he appoints people like Barr to the Attorney General, because that's his job. Get that? So, the IRS takes money out of our paycheck and spends it any way they wish. Lovely. Oh, but we do get refunds back, right? So they're not getting all my money. Well, of course. But if you think about it, you get back more than you pay in with your deductions. So how in the world does that balance out? If you put in $3,000 and you get $4,000 back, well, the government's in the business to lose money. Well, they are, but because your employer also pays the same amount that you pay in, and every other employee, he matches it dollar for dollar. So there you go. So when you get a refund, every employer in the country does not. That's how the government keeps running, and that's how it raises funds. And you still get a big, fat tax return. Wow. Well, of course, so in the effort of keeping America safe and secure and being able to help those that are so in need, we, the American people, say, okay, and we pay our taxes. And they actually take it out of your paycheck. You have no choice. And I think, let's see, mine was, there are better ways to raise money. A lot better ways for a government to raise funds than an income tax, and probably that'll be a discussion for another day. And I will gladly donate the 23.5% of my paycheck to the government so they can go out and do good things with it. It has become our way of life, and now we are all grown up with the income tax, so it's no big deal, and life in these United States moves on. Lovely. But wait. There's more. That's right. 2008 to 2016. Barack Hussein Obama. Now, here is where the liberals took the hard left turn. You know, during his campaigns, Barack Obama promised free housing, free cell phones. I got my Obama phone. We all remember that soundbite. Free power, free health care, etc., etc., etc. Free, 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 free. Sounded like, kind of like one of those income tax commercials from a couple months back. Free, 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 free. And that's what he promised. You know what? 8 years of him there, and not one single promise of his came through. Housing costs went up. Your free health care cost you more than it ever did. Prescription prices went through the roof when life-saving insulin cost $700 to $5,000 per month, and you can't afford it. What happens? It's not pretty. The cost of electricity rose. Our fuel costs for our automobiles, the one that hits everybody the hardest, raised 300% in his first term. Actually, in his first 2 years. We were paying $3+ per gallon. And actually saw it at $4 in Central Florida. A gallon. Wow. Oh, so, you know what? And our national debt, it rose into the tens of trillions of dollars, higher than all the debt accrued by all previous presidents combined. That's right. No other president wasted more money and incurred more debt than him. I don't think anybody ever could again. In his first year in office, he made the great world apology tour and swore his assistance to nations. Most of these see us as mortal enemies. That's right. He even went to the extreme of sending hundreds of billions of dollars to the terrorist-supporting nation of Iran. Here's a funny one. In a United States military plane. All the numbers and everything were blacked out of it, but it was a U.S. military plane. Dude, talk about abuse of authority. So, democracy, my dear little Johnny, is actually the enemy of tyrants. The freedom to keep and bear arms is actually the enemy of tyrants. You know, all these people that we just talked about were all liberals, and look what they did to us. Our founding fathers, yes, they were liberals. But above all, they were patriots and loyal to this new nation conceived in liberty, and above all, they believed in the Constitution that they worked so hard on together to be the law of the land. Yes, they were liberals, little Johnny. But you know what? It's comments like you wrote to me from people like you, using profanity to try to sound educated, to get your very pointed across. That, my dear young lad, that gives liberals a bad name. So in essence, little Johnny, this is your fault. With that, I thank you for joining me today, and I hope you learned a little bit about some history. And who knows, maybe one day common sense may prevail.